Hi everyone. That's a lot of folks. So it's always a little bit intimidating, like coming on this stage. So I hope you're like enjoying the conference, right? Yes. That's good. I do as well. So today my talk is about Istuar, and I'm also gonna talk about Vite and how it helps me build Istuar. So I'm Guillaume Chau. I'm part of the Vue core team. Mostly maintaining the Vue DevTools, so the extension you install in your browsers. So you can find me on Mastodon or Twitter or GitHub and other places. So Istuar is basically a tool that allows you to write stories. So very quickly, a story is basically an environment where you can showcase some components from your project and have them run in isolation from the rest of the application. And this can be useful for a lot of reasons. So for example, you can better document those components in your team if you have a lot of developers. Or even like if you're building a component library that is supposed to be published publicly, you can document all the components this way. And you can do a lot of other things like testing the components, for example, with visual regressions. So Istuar has a lot of stuff going on. Obviously, it's a very young project, which I released last year. And we're still like working on it and adding new features. For example, we added swell support, so that it proves that Istuar is not it's framework agnostic and not only about Vue. So it aligns a little bit with the philosophy we have in the Vue community to like not create silos like Evan told earlier today. So writing stories is the big difference between like Istuar and other tools. And my idea was to make it so that stories will really integrate well in project, especially in a Vue project, where we don't usually use things like JSX, for example. So I wanted stories to really look like a normal component, basically. So here's an example of a story in Istuar. So it's really just about writing a normal Vue component and using the story and the variant components provided by Istuar in your story file. And then it works, and you have your story appearing in your Istuar application. So the main topic of the talk is about how Vite empowers me to like build Istuar. Obviously, when I started working on it last year, I immediately there was no question whether I should use Vite or not. It was very obvious because using Vite allows me to like reuse the whole Vite ecosystem and build tools and like the Vue plugin for Vite to process the Vue files, and like even for the user, it adds benefits because you don't have to like configure a lot of stuff. You can like half of the process is already configured in your Vite configuration file, for example. And we also get like all the benefits inherent to Vite as well, such as the amazingly fast HMR. So the first big feature I liked from Vite that allowed me to build Istuar is called virtual modules. And this one is really about creating files from nothing, basically. So files that don't exist on your disk. But before talking about them, I'm gonna talk a little bit about how Istuar works when you run Istuar in your terminal. So at the top, you have the command to run Istuar in development mode, which is the most interesting one for this talk. But you have a lot of other commands. And it's basically starting a dev server, a Vite dev server. So just like when you run Vite in your dev script, basically. But we do a lot of different stuff than normal Vite dev server, and we add a lot of logic around it. So that's why here you have two other things at the bottom. So you have watchers, which are like watching the changes to story files and markdown files to make according like updates in the story application you have. And you have a Vite node server, so yeah, generating a lot of stuff. And you have a Vite node server here, which is all about actually executing the story files to collect information about them. So for example, if the Vite node server executes this story file, so it's not in the browser, it's on Node.js side, we can see that the story has this title and has so many variants and stuff like that on the server. So even before going in the browser. So all of this goes back then to the Vite dev server, and we are using it. We are using all of this information in the Vite dev server through virtual modules. So that's where they come into play. So here is an example of a virtual module. So in the browser, we can import a virtual module using a standard ESM import statement here. And then we can tell the Vite dev server that if you are trying to resolve this module ID, which here is virtual Istuar stories, we can say, oh, this actually exists even if you don't find it on the disk. So that's basically what this piece of code tells Vite. And then we can actually generate JavaScript code on the fly when we load this virtual module. So here, I'm like returning a JavaScript module, which is generated on the fly with, for example, the list of stories we just scanned in your project. And then it goes back to the browser as a normal ESM module. And we can like execute it and use the data it contains. And the nice thing about it is that you have access to the HMR systems of it, so you can like live update virtual models as well. And we use it quite a lot in Istuar actually, so here's a list of stuff which are based on virtual modules in Istuar. So it's really, really useful. And basically it serves as like a data API of sort, because like the browser application can like fetch virtual modules instead of fetching an API endpoint. And the nice thing about virtual modules is that when you go through the building process for production, the result of those virtual modules we saw in the load function actually get put in the final static code. So you can actually then deploy all of this on a server, for example, and all the virtual module code will still be there, even without the dev server logic. So that's pretty cool. I'm going through the slides a little bit quickly because I want to live code a new feature for Istuar with you. So here's an Istuar application on the right, and here is the source code of Istuar. So I wanted to like use this virtual module feature to like implement a new feature. So here I have like a search field with commands, and I want to basically allow plugins, Istuar plugins, to add new commands, custom commands. So the idea here is that I'm going to first, oh, sorry. So I'm going to first create a module ID as a const here. So I'm going to call it like commands, for example. And usually I prefix all the stuff with virtual. And then I'm going to like add another one. So that's for the load function, resolve ID function we saw earlier. Sorry. And I'm going to edit the Vite plugin. So here's the Vite plugin, which is in charge of resolving the virtual modules used in Istuar. So the first thing we need to do is to go into the resolve ID function of the plugin. And here we can say if ID starts with virtual files, the new one. So that would be commands. then I tell basically Vite that the file is resolved even if Vite doesn't find it on the disk. So return virtual file resolved command. So now that Vite knows this virtual module exists, we can load it using here like a method. So we're gonna first write the method, corresponding method here. So basically, we need some imports. So the idea here is that you really are going to generate actual JavaScript code. So I'm gonna first like have an array of imports that I can put in at the top of the module, and then I'm gonna loop through the different commands we have. So this is registered commands. And for each command, I'm going to have fields. And then I'm going to, so in this get commands field, I'm like adding a bunch of stuff. So that's actually generating some JavaScript here and adding imports if necessary. And then I can like add I can have here commands and add these commands here. So that's going to be all the fields. So I'm joining them to create a JavaScript object. And then I'm going to actually create the module. So it's going to be all the imports. So I'm going to join the imports together at the top. And then I'm going to export a const, which I'm going to call resolved command. And this is going to be all the commands in a single array. And then I can like close it with the right key. Here we go. And then I can call this function in my Vite plugin here to tell Vite what's the code, the actual code for the virtual module. So if RD is equal to, oh, thanks Copilot. Yeah, that speeds up the live coding a little bit. OK, so now if we go to the corresponding path, resolved path, so that's 6, and then that would be, oh, I don't have it in here. So that's this one. So we can see that on the network, so from the browser, we can already like fetch this actual, this virtual file into an actual JavaScript code module. So then we can like go to the front-end part and import it in our application. So let's go to the front-end. So in the front end currently, I have a dummy array. I'm going to remove it and instead import the registered commands const I just exported from the virtual module. So here, I can do import resolved commands from virtual. What was the name again? That was this one. So that's the one you want to use when importing your virtual module. OK, but now that I have that, oh, it's complaining. Oh, it's registered commands. OK, so let's put the same name. OK, so So we are actually importing the stuff from our virtual module, but we don't have typing information, so we can add it using declaration of a module. So here we can, like in a type file somewhere in your source code, you can declare the module. So I'm going to declare virtual, what was it again? Istuar commands. And then you can import some types from, for example, that would be client command here. And we can export the registered command as using the types. So if we go back to the component here, we can see that we now have typing from our virtual module. So that's nice. So let's see if it works. So for now, I don't have anything. And if I go to the plugin, so that's here. We're going to add it in the plugin. So it's going to reload. And now, if we fetch this module again, we can see that it dynamically generated JavaScript code from the virtual module logic we just added. So now we should have our third command from the plugin. And the other API I wanted to talk about is the HTML API, so for the auth module replacement. And this one usually is useful for doing actual auth module replacement. So how do you do that? You use the import meta auth API. So import meta is actually a standard global you have in every ESM module, so even in the browser. And so you can use accept to get the new module here and do some stuff. You have also a lot of other methods. So for example, this one is for targeting dependencies inside the module. You have methods to clean up side effects in case the module is replaced or no longer used on the page. And you can also decide, oh, I'm no longer going to accept this HTML update. I'm gonna propagate it to the parents, and then they take care of it, or page reloads if nobody does. But the nice thing about HTML in Vite is that it can be used to do some communication between the browser and the Vite dev server. So that's actually how we are going to let the plugin know that we executed the command. So here's an example. In the browser, you can use the import meta auth API with send or on. And in the Vite server, you can access the WebSocket server using WS on the Vite server. Or if you are in a Vite plugin, you can use the configure server hook here. And then you can listen or receive events that way. So let's continue. I don't have a lot of time left, but let's try to continue writing our little new feature here. So I have this one to do. So here I'm going to listen for events, and I also have this one. So here I'm going to have to speed it a little bit. So I'm going to put the code already written here. So we have the hot send, and we send a command here. And on the server, I basically loop through the existing commands to find the one that is going to do something, basically. So if we go back to our plugin, we can already that's this one. We can already get some parameters here. So the idea of this new feature is to let you automatically generate stories from existing components. So here I have a prompt system, so you can declare prompts. It's very easy to do. It's like 10 lines of code. It's like this one. So with those 10 lines of code, you can do this kind of interface. And then I can like filter. And let's say I want to select Amsterdam. You can change the name of the file. And then if we submit, we're going to see that we got the HMR event coming here. And in the story itself, I don't have time to like code it in its entirety, but if I like show you the code a little bit, it's basically generating a file and then writing it and then opening it in the editor. So if I didn't forget anything, we should be able to generate a new story. Nice. You know what? Let's try to release this. Yeah, I'm a little bit crazy. Oh, I'm gonna have to like merge it first. So I'm gonna have to change. Change branch. Merge. And then release it. And then it's going to release it, if it works. So it's going to build and release it. So yeah, those two different so those two features, so the virtual models and the HMR, are really a great way to like do a lot of cool stuff with it. So I hope that what I showed you was like gave you some ideas for maybe Vite plugins or maybe entirely new tools like Istuar. So I have to select a new version. I'm gonna bump it so that if I broke something, people like installing their packages will not be impacted. So we have we're gonna have the changelog here. Let's say it's fine. I'm gonna clean it up later. And then it's publishing. Suspense. We're still on time. We're still on time. Yeah, we have a lot of packages to publish. It's going well. For now. I think it's almost done. Yeah? Creating git tags, and it's published. Yeah! So if we go to Istuar.dev, we're going to have some actions running. Obviously, there will be, hopefully, they will be green. But I like tested before, but since they take like 9 minutes, didn't have time to wait for them. Yeah, so if you want to know more, you can go to the Vite documentation and scroll down in the guide. And then you can find more information about virtual modules and HMR. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed.